All worlds begin with Demon Slayer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Days at Yumi's house. After that, Yumi brought the bedding, sleeping mats and pillows of Bai Yu and others into the room and skillfully laid out the sleeping mats, bedding and pillows for Bai Yu and others. Bai Yu looked at Yumi's skillful movements and couldn't help but sigh that Yumi was really a good wife and mother. Whoever marries her in the future will definitely take good care of everything at home. After doing all this, Yumi stood up and said to Bai Yu and others, "Then everyone should go to bed early. I won't disturb you." After that, Yumi left the room. Agatsuma Zenitsu looked at Yumi, who was leaving, and couldn't help but sighed. Yumi-chan is so virtuous. I wonder if Nezuko will be so virtuous in the future. As he said that, Agatsuma Zenitsu looked at Tanjiro and then looked at the mist spruce wooden box containing Nezuko. Tanjiro said to Zenitsu Agatsuma with certainty, "Nezuko will definitely be virtuous in the future. But she won't marry you, who is so playboyish." Tanjiro: "I'm very loyal to Nezuko, okay? Don't discredit me." Senior Bai Yu is optimistic about Nezuko and me. Don't you believe in Senior Bai Yu's vision? I will definitely become the man that Nezuko can rely on in the future. Zenitsu Agatsuma saw that Tanjiro was unwilling for Nezuko to marry him and immediately argued with Tanjiro. While the two were arguing, Bai Yu covered Inosuke's bedding on him. Bai Yu did not wake Inosuke up, but let him sleep directly in the place where he had slept before. After doing this, Bai Yu ignored Tanjiro and Zenitsu Agatsuma, who were arguing, and lay down in his own bed and fell asleep. The next day Bai Yu got up early. As soon as he got up, Yumi knocked on the wooden door outside the room and said, "I'm coming in." After that, Yumi pushed the door and walked into the room. When Bai Yu saw Yumi coming in, he took the initiative to greet her and said, "Good morning, Yumi-chan." "Good morning, Bai Yu-kun." Yumi also smiled and replied to Bai Yu, then looked around and saw the other three people who were still sleeping. Yumi asked again, "Bai Yu-kun, are they still asleep?" Bai Yu nodded and said, "I guess they have never had such a comfortable rest, and because of their injuries, they sleep more deeply. Should we wake them up? Breakfast is already prepared. You can have breakfast after you wash up." Yumi asked Bai Yu again, because she didn't know whether to wake up Tanjiro and others. "Call them. Sleeping too much is not good for them," Bai Yu said. Immediately, Tanjiro and others gradually woke up under the call of Bai Yu and Yumi. Tanjiro, Zenitsu Agatsuma and Inosuke all felt weak after waking up, and all three of them had listless expressions on their faces. After a long time, the three of them gradually calmed down, and after washing up with Bai Yu, the four of them returned to the room again. Yumi had taken advantage of this opportunity to put away the bedding and other things, and then prepared breakfast for Bai Yu and the other three in the room. The breakfast was simple, just some rolls and seaweed rice balls, and a cup of hot tea for each person. These rolls and rice balls were made by Grandma herself for you. I hope you like them, Yumi said to Bai Yu and others sitting at the table. "Thank you for your hard work. Thank you very much for your care." Tanjiro thanked Yumi's family. Chapter 177, Four Princes. "It's what I should do. Enjoy your meal. I'll leave first," Yumi replied humbly. After that, she left the room without staying for too long. It was also the first time that Tanjiro accepted hospitality from a stranger. Feeling that Yumi was so thoughtful in her hospitality, Tanjiro actually felt a little embarrassed. In addition to verbal thanks, Tanjiro couldn't think of any better way to thank her. In the days that followed, Yumi would prepare 3 meals for Shiraha and others on time every day, and Shiraha and others' daily lives were well taken care of by Yumi. It can be said that Shiraha and others were like 4 princes in Yumi's house, enjoying the service of Yumi, the personal maid. During this period, the doctor also came to check the injuries of Tanjiro, Agatsuma Zenitsu and Inosuke. The wound of Inosuke that had been stitched with stitches also healed after a few days, and the doctor removed the stitches. There was no special need to deal with the injuries of Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu again. They just needed to rest and apply medicine regularly. The application of medicine was also done by Yumi, and Agatsuma Zenitsu finally enjoyed the benefit of Yumi applying medicine on his back after his own soft and hard grinding. However, Yumi's technique was just to wipe the active oil for Agatsuma Zenitsu, and the experience and treatment effect could not be compared with Bai Yu's wood breathing therapy. Although Yumi's technique was not as comfortable as Bai Yu's, Agatsuma Zenitsu was still happy and gained great pleasure mentally. During this period, Bai Yu also performed wood breathing therapy for Tanjiro, and Tanjiro did not refuse. After feeling Bai Yu's magical hands, Tanjiro knew the magic of Bai Yu's hands. Tanjiro, who received Bai Yu's wood breathing treatment, recovered much faster than Inosuke and Agatsuma Zenitsu. Agatsuma Zenitsu did not choose to accept Bai Yu's wood breathing therapy after Yumi was willing to apply medicine for him. Because Agatsuma Zenitsu actually prefers to let beautiful women serve him, rather than Bai Yu, a man. Bai Yu naturally did not force Zenitsu Agatsuma. Bai Yu naturally knew Zenitsu Agatsuma's little calculation. This guy probably wants his back injury to stay bad, so that he has a reason to keep Yumi for him. And the most serious injury to Inosuke is not the external injury, but the 4 broken ribs. Afterwards, Bai Yu also performed the wood breathing therapy for Inosuke. Inosuke refused at first, until Bai Yu told him that he could duel after his injury was healed, and he accepted Bai Yu's treatment. As time went by, 10 days later, Tanjiro and Inosuke's injuries improved to a great extent. Zenitsu Agatsuma, who had not been treated by Bai Yu, became the one who recovered the slowest. Tanjiro and Inosuke could already remove the splints that fixed their bodies, while Zenitsu Agatsuma needed to wait for a while, until the broken bones grew together completely before the splints could be removed. Zenitsu Agatsuma saw that Tanjiro and Inosuke had recovered almost completely, and then he begged Bai Yu to use the wood breathing therapy to accelerate their treatment. "Don't you want me to treat you? Go find your Yumi-chan." Bai Yu took the opportunity to tease Agatsuma Zenitsu when he asked her, "Senior Bai Yu, if you are not willing to help me recover from my injuries, we will have to stay at Yumi-chan's house for a long time. Wouldn't you feel embarrassed?" Agatsuma Zenitsu found a very favorable reason to negotiate with Bai Yu. Chapter 178 The Eve of Farewell. Hearing this, Bai Yu did not expect that Agatsuma Zenitsu would use this reason to pressure him, so he replied, "What do I have to be embarrassed about? I'm not like you, waiting for food and drink all day, waiting for Yumi-chan to come and apply medicine for you personally. You just need Yumi-chan to feed you personally." During these 10 days, Bai Yu did not need to recuperate, so he helped Yumi do a lot of heavy and tiring work, including accompanying Yumi to the market in the town to buy food. So among the 3 wounded, Agatsuma Zenitsu lived the most carefree life. This guy just needed Yumi to feed him. Hearing Bai Yu's words, Agatsuma Zenitsu smiled a little ashamed, and then scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, "I'm not a wounded. The wounded must be treated as wounded." Bai Yu did not continue to talk nonsense with Agatsuma Zenitsu, but helped him with the wood breathing therapy to speed up the healing of his broken bones. If they really had to wait for Zenitsu Agatsuma's broken bones to heal normally, they would probably have to stay at Yumi's house for a month, which Bai Yu really felt was a bit too long. Bai Yu was not embarrassed, but he didn't want Zenitsu Agatsuma to live too comfortably. 10 days later, the injuries of Tanjiro, Zenitsu Agatsuma and Inosuke had basically healed, and everyone was ready to say goodbye to Yumi's family. Yumi's grandmother was worried about the sudden departure of Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others, so she called the doctor again to check the physical condition of Tanjiro and the other 2. As a result, the doctor was also surprised after the re-examination, and then told Yumi's grandmother that Tanjiro and the other 2 had basically recovered. It was not until Tanjiro, Zenitsu Agatsuma and Inosuke were basically recovered that the old lady was relieved and acquiesced to Bai Yu. Tanjiro and others planned to leave. Immediately, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others changed back into their original clothes in the room. These clothes had been washed clean by Yumi, and the scent of wisteria flowers could still be smelled on them. It was obviously soaked in aromatherapy made of wisteria flowers. Just as Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others were changing clothes, the crow flew in from the gap in the window and landed on the tatami. North-northeast. North-northeast. The next destination is the Nada Spider Mountain in north-northeast. Please go there as soon as possible. Please go there as soon as possible. The crow then shouted the new task instructions to Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others. After changing clothes, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others were ready to leave the room. Along the way, Yumi and her grandmother led the way for Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others. Yumi's grandmother and grandson have been sending Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others out of the gate of the mansion. Granny, Yumi-chan, thank you for taking care of us for so many days. Thank you very much. Tanjiro turned around and bowed to Yumi and her grandmother, and Shiraha and Agatsuma Zenitsu also bowed to express their gratitude to Yumi's grandmother and grandson. Yumi and her grandmother also bowed back to Shiraha and others. Inosuke didn't seem to know much about basic etiquette, so he stupidly looked at Shiraha, Yumi and others who bowed to each other. Agatsuma Zenitsu saw Inosuke standing there stupidly, and immediately reached out and pressed his head down. What are you doing? Inosuke resisted reluctantly. Pig-headed idiot. This is respect and gratitude for Yumi's family. Agatsuma Zenitsu is a person who understands and cares about etiquette in formal occasions, so he yelled at Inosuke with some dissatisfaction. Chapter 179 Departure. Under the coercion of Agatsuma Zenitsu, Inosuke bowed to Yumi's grandmother and grandson. Immediately, Yumi's grandmother took the flint from Yumi and then said to Shiraha, Tanjiro and others, then I will light a fire to drive away the evil spirits for you. Thank you very much. Tanjiro thanked again. Using a flint to strike sparks on the back of a person who is about to travel far away has the meaning of avoiding evil spirits. After that, Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu turned around, and Shiraha turned around as well. Inosuke, who had only one brain, was still standing there stupidly. Agatsuma Zenitsu couldn't bear it, so he immediately pulled Inosuke around. What are you doing again? Inosuke looked at Agatsuma Zenitsu puzzled and asked. Don't ask. Just turn around. Agatsuma Zenitsu didn't want to explain anything to Inosuke. Anyway, Agatsuma Zenitsu felt that with Inosuke's brain, it was useless to explain too much. After Yumi's grandmother had finished lighting fires for Shiraha, Tanjiro and the others, to drive away the evil spirits, she returned the flint to Yumi, and then said, then I wish you all good luck. Shiraha, Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, you must live well, goodbye. Yumi called out everyone's name one by one, and then waved to Shiraha, Tanjiro and the others as a final farewell. Shiraha, Tanjiro and Agatsuma Zenitsu also waved to Yumi, but Agatsuma Zenitsu thanked Yumi at this time. Yumi-chan, thank you for taking care of me. If it weren't for Nezuko, I would definitely come back to marry you. So, you must marry a good family. Yumi didn't expect Agatsuma Zenitsu to confess to her at this time. Although this confession was more of a blessing to her, Yumi still saw that Agatsuma Zenitsu was indeed a philandering man in his bones. However, this time Yumi was not angry, but smiled happily at Zenitsu Agatsuma, and then said, I will. Finally, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others set out on the road to Hokuhoto. After leaving Yumi's house, Bai Yu teased Zenitsu Agatsuma, Zenitsu, you actually want to marry Yumi-chan? It turns out that you still can't change your nature of loving everyone you meet. Hearing this, Zenitsu Agatsuma denied it and said, no way. I only like Nezuko now. Okay. Then why do you say such mushy words to Yumi-chan? Bai Yu immediately took over. Senior Bai Yu, those words of mine are blessings to Yumi-chan. Because I already have Nezuko, I gave up Yumi-chan and let her find a good family again. Zenitsu Agatsuma explained to Bai Yu. What Zenitsu Agatsuma said before and after can prove that Zenitsu Agatsuma must have fallen in love with Yumi, but between Nezuko and Yumi, Zenitsu Agatsuma chose Nezuko. So when Zenitsu Agatsuma said he was loyal, Bai Yu didn't really agree. Bai Yu couldn't say whether Nezuko would be with Zenitsu Agatsuma in the end, but Zenitsu Agatsuma would definitely grow a lot because of Nezuko. However, looking at Zenitsu Agatsuma's look, it is obvious that he has already regarded himself as Nezuko's husband and Tanjiro's brother-in-law. However, this identity is only recognized by Zenitsu Agatsuma himself. Tanjiro will definitely not admit it now. Chapter 180 Screams in the Mountains. After 2 days of traveling, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others finally arrived at the foot of the Nada Spider Mountain in the north-northeast shortly after nightfall. At this time, Agatsuma Zenitsu was trembling all over. His hands were tightly hooked around Bai Yu's neck, and his legs were tightly wrapped around Bai Yu's waist. Bai Yu was very helpless about this. Zenitsu, you don't have to be so scared. I won't abandon you and run away. Get down quickly. Bai Yu immediately ordered the frightened Agatsuma Zenitsu. However, Agatsuma Zenitsu did not mean to get off Bai Yu's back, but tremblingly said to Bai Yu, Senior Bai Yu, don't you feel that this Nada Spider Mountain is extremely wrong? What's wrong? Bai Yu did not feel anything wrong, so he asked Agatsuma Zenitsu. This mountain is full of screams of many people. It's very scary. There must be many people dead inside. Agatsuma Zenitsu said immediately. Hearing this, Bai Yu really didn't hear any screams. However, Agatsuma Zenitsu's ears are indeed much better than those of ordinary people, and it is understandable that he hears things that ordinary people cannot hear. The screams he mentioned are probably the faint sounds of the wind echoing in the mountains. Of course, it is not ruled out that Agatsuma Zenitsu can really hear the voices of the dead in a special environment. Senior Bai Yu, can we not go into Spider Mountain? Agatsuma Zenitsu asked Bai Yu. Bai Yu shook his head and said, if you really heard a lot of people screaming, it means that something terrible may have happened on the mountain. Those who screamed may have died tragically on the mountain, so we have to go into the mountain to find out. Coward, it's disgusting. Inosuke looked at Agatsuma Zenitsu, who was so timid and couldn't help but mock Agatsuma Zenitsu. You are disgusting, a wild boar monster with a woman's face. Agatsuma Zenitsu retorted unhappily. Coward, do you want to fight? Inosuke also got angry and looked like he was going to fight Agatsuma Zenitsu. Tanjiro immediately stopped Inosuke, and Bai Yu also warned Inosuke coldly, now is not the time for children to quarrel. Since Zenitsu doesn't want to go into the mountain, just wait for us here in the mountain. Inosuke saw Bai Yu come forward to stop him, and he immediately restrained himself and did not intend to disobey Bai Yu. At this moment, Tanjiro's face suddenly changed, and then he turned behind him suddenly, then let go of Inosuke and ran away quickly. Seeing this, Inosuke immediately chased after him. Bai Yu forcibly pulled Agatsuma Zenitsu away and then threw him on the mud, and then hurriedly chased after him. Seeing that he was abandoned, Agatsuma Zenitsu was a little panicked, so he complained very aggrievedly, why is it like this again? After that, Agatsuma Zenitsu was forced to chase after him. After running for about a few dozen meters, Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Inosuke saw a person lying on the muddy road. Tanjiro immediately shouted, he's wearing a team uniform. He's a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. The member of the Demon Slayer Corps, who was also a member of Bai Yu and Tanjiro, also noticed the group coming, so he raised his head and asked Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others for help. Save me. Save me quickly. Chapter 181 Rescue. The member of the Demon Slayer Corps seemed to have seen the hope of survival, and tears of excitement flowed from the corners of his eyes. Bai Yu and Tanjiro then sped up again, and then came to the front of the member of the Demon Slayer Corps. As soon as Tanjiro stopped, he asked the member, are you okay? What happened here? As soon as the voice fell, it seemed that a huge force pulled the teammate back, and pulled the teammate into the air. Save me. The team member's expression suddenly became desperate. Tanjiro looked at the member of the Demon Slayer Corps who was suddenly pulled up, and he didn't react for a while, and was stunned. Bai Yu was also stunned, but Bai Yu still reacted at the critical moment. Water breathing, 11th form, water shadow slash. Bai Yu instantly used water breathing, 11th form. Bai Yu suddenly pulled the blade at his waist. The whole process from drawing the knife to putting it away was as fast as lightning, giving people the feeling that Bai Yu only slightly twitched the blade. Then, a cold light flashed, and a water blade suddenly appeared behind the teammate of the Demon Slayer Corps like lightning, and it disappeared in a flash. And the member of the Demon Slayer Corps fell heavily to the ground from midair, and the force pulling him seemed to have disappeared. In fact, Bai Yu didn't know what was pulling the team member. If the force pulling the team member was invisible, then his attack just now would definitely be ineffective. However, after Bai Yu felt the feeling of the sword energy cutting off something, Bai Yu knew that the force pulling the team member was with the help of a physical medium. As for not seeing anything just now, Bai Yu also had his own speculation. The medium pulling the team member was probably a thin thread that was difficult to detect with the naked eye. This thread must not be an ordinary thread, otherwise it would definitely not be able to withstand such a great force. After the team member fell heavily to the ground, he suddenly coughed up several mouthfuls of blood. It seemed that he had suffered serious internal injuries. I don't know if there is still hope. Bai Yu didn't want to catch him, but he really couldn't get out of it. Tanjiro and his team were even more so. They were completely stunned and did not react, let alone cooperate with Bai Yu to save people. When the team member suddenly fell from midair, Tanjiro realized that it was Bai Yu who took action. Then, Tanjiro hurried over, helped the team member up, and finally let him lie on the mud. Just as Tanjiro went to help the team member, Bai Yu also took the opportunity to look at the team member's back and indeed found the broken thin silk thread on his back. However, after being cut by Bai Yu, the silk thread looked extremely soft and did not look like it could pull people. Spider Mountain? Spider Mountain? Are those silk threads produced by spiders? Bai Yu murmured to himself at this time. Are you okay? What happened here? Tanjiro was eager to save people and did not care about these details at all, but asked the injured team member anxiously. The team member coughed a few times, then said to Tanjiro, "Don't go into the mountain, you will die." What happened? Tanjiro continued to ask. As soon as Tanjiro finished speaking, the team member fainted. Chapter 182 Entering the Mountain. Dead. Dead. Nagatsuma's Zenitsu was frightened and screamed when he saw that teammate fainted. Bai Yu felt the weak breath of the teammate, so he said, "Not dead, there is still a weak breath." After that, Bai Yu used the essence generated by the wood breath to temporarily protect the heart of the team member, temporarily holding his last breath. This is all Bai Yu can do now. After all, it is unrealistic to treat him with all his strength now, because Bai Yu's wood essence is not a resurrection technique that can make the demon slayer core alive and kicking all of a sudden. However, after Bai Yu's wood essence was injected into the heart of the team member, Bai Yu could feel that the life of the team member was slipping away little by little. The loss of the original life is irreversible by the wood essence, so Bai Yu sighed in his heart. Senior Bai Yu, how is it? Tanjiro knew that Bai Yu was using special means to treat the team member, and after Bai Yu withdrew his hand, he asked Bai Yu. Bai Yu did not tell Tanjiro the real situation, but said, "It's okay for now." Great. Hearing this answer, Tanjiro showed a happy expression. After that, Bai Yu looked at Agatsuma Zenitsu and said, "Zenitsu, don't you want to go into the mountains? Then just stay here to take care of this team member and wait for us to come back." After that, Bai Yu turned to Tanjiro and said to Tanjiro, "Let's go into the mountains quickly." Hearing this, Tanjiro nodded and acquiesced to Bai Yu's decision. Immediately, Bai Yu did not stay any longer, but accelerated into the mountains. Looking at Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Inosuke ran away quickly. Agatsuma Zenitsu was a little overwhelmed and shouted to everyone, "Hey!" Agatsuma Zenitsu said, after he said hey, and didn't know what to say, so he could only watch Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Inosuke gradually disappear from his sight. After the three figures completely disappeared into the Spider Mountain, Agatsuma Zenitsu could only sigh, and then looked at the team member who was lying on the mud with one breath left. Finally, Agatsuma Zenitsu sat down next to the team member, and then hugged his legs tightly with both hands. After entering the Spider Mountain, Tanjiro felt a lot of blood smell in the mountain, and Tanjiro's face suddenly solidified. "Tanjiro, have you found anything? Which direction should we go?" Bai Yu asked Tanjiro at this time. Blindly wandering around the mountain is a waste of time, so Bai Yu's help to Tanjiro is the wisest decision. After all, Tanjiro's nose is very sensitive to smells, so whether it is looking for people or ghosts, it is definitely right to follow Tanjiro's nose. Hearing this, Tanjiro sniffed carefully, then analyzed the complex smell in the air, and finally touched the place where the smell of blood was the strongest. Tanjiro planned to go to the place with the strongest smell of blood first. Firstly, he might meet some survivors, and secondly, the place with the strongest smell of blood must have the smell of the ghost, and then he could continue to track the remaining smell of the ghost. Seeing Tanjiro's action, Bai Yu followed behind Tanjiro, and Inosuke followed behind Bai Yu. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Meeting the Murata Brothers. Bai Yu followed Tanjiro's direction and went deeper into the mountain. As Tanjiro moved forward quickly, Tanjiro soon found the breath of the survivors. He turned to Bai Yu and said, "Senior Bai Yu, there are survivors. Let's go find the survivors first." Hearing this, Bai Yu had no objection and nodded. After walking for a few minutes, Tanjiro saw two figures hiding behind a big tree. Tanjiro then quietly touched them. When they got closer, Bai Yu and Tanjiro found that these two people were also members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Just when Tanjiro was about to greet him, one of them suddenly turned around and looked at everything behind him in horror. When Tanjiro saw the face of the member who suddenly turned around, Tanjiro immediately shouted in surprise, "Shinji." Tanjiro. Senior Bai Yu. The man called Shinji by Tanjiro was also very surprised and shouted to Bai Yu and Tanjiro in front of him. Immediately, another team member turned around, and after looking at Shiraha, Tanjiro and Inosuke, he asked Shinji next to him, "Someone you know?" Hearing this, Shinji nodded, and then said to the team member, "Brother, this is the friend I met when I participated in the final selection of the Demon Slayer Corps." Shinji's brother is named Murata Shinichi, who was a member of the Demon Slayer Corps 2 years earlier than Shiraha and Tanjiro. When Shinji was in Fujisakiama, he often talked about his brother to Tanjiro, so Tanjiro immediately greeted Shinichi politely. "Senior Shinichi, my name is Tanjiro Kamado. I'm a friend of Shinji. The one with white hair is Shiraha, and the one wearing the wild boar head mask is Inosuke." Then Tanjiro introduced Shiraha and Inosuke to Shinichi. After knowing that Tanjiro and Shinji were from the same class, Shinichi showed a disappointed look, and then said dejectedly, "You shouldn't have come. With your D class, you are here to die. There is no point at all. Even with my A class strength, I can only barely get my brother out. Only the pillars can get rid of the ghosts in Spider Mountain." As soon as Shinichi finished speaking, Inosuke punched Shinichi in the face, and then said unhappily, "Stop talking nonsense to me. If you want to talk about meaning, your existence is meaningless. Explain the situation here to me, weakling." Inosuke. Tanjiro immediately scolded Inosuke loudly, but Inosuke was not afraid of Tanjiro at all, so he turned a blind eye to Tanjiro's scolding. Bai Yu did not stop Inosuke's behavior, but just watched it all quietly. Shinji did not know Inosuke, so he did not expect Inosuke to hit his brother directly, and even ridiculed his brother as a weakling. This made Shinji quite unhappy, and finally Shinji couldn't help but pushed Inosuke away and retorted, "My brother is not a weakling, he protects me very well." The stubborn Inosuke saw Shinji attacking him, so he thought he wanted to duel with him, so he was ready to fight back against Shinji. But Bai Yu held Inosuke down at this time and said, "Don't be too complacent. Shinji, Shinichi-senpai, I'm sorry. Inosuke is a little stupid, and he likes to be straightforward, but he is not a bad person, so don't mind it." Tanjiro acted as a peacemaker, and helped Inosuke apologize to the brothers Shinichi and Shinji. Chapter 184. No need to go through all that trouble. Shinichi Murata was not a person who cared about things, so he did not take Inosuke's unreasonableness to heart. "Tell us about the situation here. What did you encounter?" At this time, Bai Yu, as the core of Tanjiro and Inosuke, once again asked the two brothers Shinji. Shinji did not neglect Bai Yu's question. After all, Bai Yu still had a certain majesty in his mind. He cleared all the ghosts in the selection venue. Such strength was definitely not at the same level as himself. Maybe Bai Yu's strength was even stronger than his A-level brother. After listening to Shinji's story, Bai Yu understood the general situation. It turned out that there seemed to be a very powerful ghost in Spider Mountain, so the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps used the Crow to gather a team to attack the ghost entrenched in Spider Mountain. Unexpectedly, most of the team members neglected to guard against it, were controlled by the spider silk, and then killed each other. Even if the members who were not controlled by the spider silk discovered the trick and cut off the silk, it would not be long before the silk would be reconnected by the spiders in the mountains, and gradually more and more people would be controlled. Even if a ruthless member cut off the hands and feet of the members who were controlled, it would still not be able to completely break the deadlock, because doing so would only help the ghost kill its own people. Among them, the lowest level D-level members, which is the level that Bai Yu is at now, died the most. The rating of the Demon Slayer Corps is that the Crow reports the situation of each mission of its master to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters, and the headquarters records the performance. Only when the performance meets the upgrades, the Crow will issue a new level badge and bonus to the Demon Hunter. The two brothers Shinji are more rational. Faced with such a situation, Shinichi can only choose to avoid it with his younger brother, and then hide. As long as they wait until dawn, or wait for the strongest pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps to come forward, they will have hope of being saved. This is what the two brothers Shinji and his partner are planning at this time. It cannot be said that they are cowardly and afraid of death, but they are more able to recognize the situation. If you know that you can't win this battle, but you still foolishly run to die, that would be ridiculous behavior. Suddenly, the sound of silk thread pulling suddenly rang out in the quiet surroundings. After hearing this sound, Shinji's brother Shinichi's face suddenly became ugly. They are chasing us again. Let's leave here quickly and find a safe place to make a long-term plan. Shinichi suggested that Bai Yu and his team temporarily avoid this troublesome situation. It's too late, Bai Yu said at this time. Then, many members of the Demon Slayer Corps emerged around Bai Yu and his team. Those members were like zombies, and their walking postures were very abnormal. Cut off the silk threads on their bodies, cooperate with me to kill a bloody road, and you seize the opportunity to escape the encirclement. Shinichi, as the highest level existence among all, gave orders to Bai Yu and his team. No need to be so troublesome. Bai Yu stood up at this time, and his right hand was already on the hilt of the knife. Then, Bai Yu adjusted his breathing, and suddenly, he drew out the two-color sun blade from his waist, but the blade stopped halfway. Then, a cyclone was seen around Bai Yu. Chapter 185 Type 13, Domain Judgment. As time went by, the cyclone became stronger and stronger, and gradually upgraded to a whirlwind. At the outermost edge of the whirlwind, you can see water splashing. The whirlwind spread out in all directions with Bai Yu as the center. Bai Yu's blue robe and hair with water ripples danced with the whirlwind. The same was true for Tanjiro and others. Seeing Bai Yu release a move other than the water 10 form, Tanjiro couldn't help but envy him. This was another move that Tanjiro had never seen before. Tanjiro, who had always been inseparable from Bai Yu, didn't know when Bai Yu created his own exclusive moves. Tanjiro still hasn't fully understood the one form reformed that he asked Bai Yu for advice. Although Tanjiro can use it successfully now, it is far from reaching the number of swords that Bai Yu drew last time he fought against Hand Demon. Now the maximum number of swords that Tanjiro can draw in 1 second is 4, and the sword can only be drawn for 2 seconds, which means that Tanjiro's maximum number of swords is 8. When Bai Yu fought against the Hand Demon, he swung nearly 40 swords. This comparison is obviously not on the same level. So if Tanjiro wants to learn Bai Yu's self-created moves, he still needs some time to practice. Shinichi didn't know what Bai Yu was going to do, but seeing the exaggerated formation that Bai Yu made at this time, he didn't want to interfere with Bai Yu. Feeling Bai Yu's momentum, Shinji admired Bai Yu even more. Obviously, they hadn't seen each other for nearly 2 months. Bai Yu's strength must have been improved by another level compared to the previous selection. Water breathing, 13th form, domain judgment. Water breathing, 13th form, domain judgment. This move is a new move that Bai Yu has sublimated based on the two self-created moves of 11th form and 12th form. Domain judgment can launch sword energy strangulation on all targets marked by Bai Yu within 50 meters. The more targets are marked, the weaker the power. The advantage of the move is that it can attack multiple targets at the same time. The disadvantage of the move is that the skill release time is long, and it cannot be instant. As Bai Yu quickly put the blade back into the scabbard, waves of water suddenly aroused under Bai Yu's feet, and then the whirlwind suddenly dissipated, and the air around him instantly returned to calm. Finally, within a radius of 50 meters, all the members of the Demon Slayer Corps who were controlled by the spider silk thread were attacked by intensive sword energy on their backs. The power of those sword energies could not be compared with the dark blade strangulation of the 12th type and the water shadow slash of the 11th type. If it was attacked on the ghost, it would not cause much damage to the ghost. At most it would cut a series of bloody wounds on the ghost's body. However, this power was not a problem to cut off the spider silk threads that controlled those team members. In the end, all the team members who surrounded Bai Yu and his group lost control and fell to the ground. Seeing such a scene, Zenai couldn't help but be amazed. This awesome method is really impossible for ordinary people to do. Take Shinichi himself for example. Even though he is a class A player who is more senior than Shiroha, he cannot do what Shiroha did, instantly releasing the control of nearly 20 people. Is this still the strength level of class D? Shinichi was secretly surprised. Now even if Tanjiro boasted that Shiroha was one of the 9 pillars, Shinichi would believe without a doubt that Shiroha was the pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps. Chapter 186, Meet Zaixen again. Even the competitive Inosuke couldn't help but admire Bai Yu. Brother Baimeo, you are so awesome. At this moment, Inosuke also admired Bai Yu from the bottom of his heart. This can be seen from the fact that Inosuke called Bai Yu big brother. Shinji had a fanboy expression, and he still felt familiar. Even when Bai Yu was facing a situation that other team members could not solve, he still easily resolved it. If he didn't know that Bai Yu was a member of the Demon Slayer Corps selected in the same session as himself, Shinji might really have mistaken Bai Yu for one of the 9 pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps. With such an awesome existence as Bai Yu, it would be too difficult to die. Shinichi, who had originally planned to escape, gradually felt that there was no need to escape after seeing Bai Yu's strength. Perhaps as long as he helped Bai Yu find the ghost that controlled these spider silk threads and let Bai Yu kill it in seconds, the deadlock could be completely broken. Just as Shinichi was excitedly thinking about his next plan, a blood red sphere suddenly fell from the tree. This scared Zenyi, and everyone looked over. The shape of the red sphere that fell suddenly changed from a spherical shape to a slightly flat and round cake shape, as if it could change the shape of its body with the change of external force, which is very similar to the nature of slime. Then, the blood red thing that looked very much like slime began to wriggle, as if it had life. Bai Yu looked at this strange thing that suddenly appeared, and his body's instinct told Bai Yu that this strange thing was a very dangerous thing. The appearance of this strange thing immediately made Tanjiro's expression wrinkled tightly, because Tanjiro smelled the strong ghost of that thing. Senior Bai Yu, this strange thing is a ghost. The smell is very strong. Be careful. Tanjiro immediately told Bai Yu his judgment. Hearing this, Bai Yu was also a little surprised. There are ghosts that look like this, but could it be that this guy took the wrong evolutionary route and completely gave up the appearance of a human ghost? Shinichi couldn't help but be a little unconvinced when he heard Tanjiro's words. The slime-like ghost began to wriggle, and gradually, under its wriggling, the slime ghost that could change into any shape gradually took on the prototype of a human. Then, as time went by, more and more details of the prototype appeared, and finally the whole body was naked. A woman with a hot body appeared in everyone's sight. In addition to Bai Yu, Tanjiro and others became a little shy. Tanjiro, needless to say, he must have never seen a girl's naked body. However, after being shy, Tanjiro's shy expression was immediately replaced by shock, because the female ghost who completely changed from a slime form to a human form had the words lower string and 4 on her pupils. This ghost who can change the body form into a fluid is actually one of the 12 demon moons. 12 demon moons. Shinichi also changed from shyness to horror in an instant. Shinichi's legs couldn't help but tremble, and the frequency of the trembling seemed to shake his legs apart. He didn't expect that he would actually run into the 12 Kizuki. As a member of the Demon Slayer Corps A level, he had naturally heard of the reputation of the 12 Kizuki. Chapter 187 to lower strings. The strength of the 12 Kazuki is such that only the pillars of the Demon Slayer core can fight against them, so it is normal for Shinichi to be nervous. 12 Kazuki? What is that? Inosuke didn't know this, so he asked stupidly. Hearing Inosuke's question, Shinichi felt a wave of crows flying through his heart. He didn't know whether to answer such a speechless question. It's a very powerful demon. Tanjiro explained to Inosuke in the simplest words. Soga. Then I must kill it. After hearing Tanjiro's explanation, Inosuke did not have any fear, but was eager to try. This guy's not a fool. Shinichi asked himself when he saw Inosuke's actions. Bai Yu stretched out his hand to stop Inosuke. Seeing Bai Yu stopping him, Inosuke did not force himself to find the lower string 4. At this time, a group of human-shaped black mist appeared next to the lower string 4, and then a man appeared in the position of the human-shaped black mist and replaced the black mist. The left and right pupils of the man's eyes were the same as those of the naked lower string 4, with the 3 characters lower string and 3. The appearance of another member of the 12 Kazuki made the already heavy atmosphere even more suffocating. The smell of the 2 lower strings oppressed Tanjiro to the point that he could hardly breathe. Shinichi's legs softened completely, and he fell to his knees. Meeting 2 lower strings at once, he was probably going to die this time, right? It was also the first time that Shinji saw his brother so scared. Although he was a little disappointed with his brother's performance, Shinji did not dislike his brother for this. Instead, he stretched out his hand to pull him up and encouraged him. Brother, don't be afraid. Bai Yu Sr. will protect us. The only thing Shinji could do was to place his hope on Bai Yu, because he believed that Bai Yu was a man who could create miracles. You are really not simple enough to kill lower string 6. You are also quite handsome, but this time you and the guy with the Hanafuda on his ear will die at the hands of me and lower string 3. The naked lower string 4 said, and then licked his lips, looking very coquettish. Hearing this, Bai Yu knew that this guy was coming for him and Tanjiro. Apparently, the hunting order of Muzan Kibutsuji has not been withdrawn. New mission released. Mission: kill the lower 4th and lower 3rd in one fell swoop without turning on the normal state of demonization. Reward for mission completion: water breathing. Mastery is upgraded to water breathing. Final secret: wood breathing. Mastery is upgraded to wood breathing. Final secret: reward the host with demonization skills, mimicry, and shadow clone. Penalty for uncompleted mission: none. At this time, the Super Dimension Crossing system issued a new mission to Bai Yu. Although there is no penalty for this mission, the rewards for the mission are very rich. As long as the rewards for the mission are successfully obtained, Bai Yu's ability to demonize and his normal strength will be greatly improved. Both breathing methods have been upgraded to the realm of the final secret, and the effect brought about by this is definitely a qualitative leap. Tanjiro, these 2 lower moons were sent by Muzan Kibutsuji specifically to kill us. You take people to deal with the demon who controls the threads, and I will handle this here alone. Bai Yu immediately prepared to let Tanjiro and others move, so that he could concentrate on fighting 2 at once. Chapter 188 Crazy. When Shinichi heard what Bai Yu said, he immediately thought that Bai Yu was crazy. He actually wanted to fight 2 alone. These were 2 lower moons of the 12 Kazuki. Even if Bai Yu had killed one of the 12 Kazuki before, he couldn't be so arrogant as to fight 2 alone. Moreover, Shinichi also felt that Bai Yu's kill that time was definitely not a crushing victory, but a lucky cooperation with Tanjiro and others. It is understandable that Shinichi is not confident in Bai Yu. After all, he doesn't know how much energy is contained in Bai Yu. It can be said that as long as Bai Yu activates the demonization, not to say that he can kill the 4th and 3rd lower moons in seconds, but he can definitely suppress them 100%. Therefore, it is completely impossible for these 2 lower moons to kill Bai Yu, because Bai Yu can give up the mission reward to save his life and kill these 2 lower moons. Tanjiro was a little surprised that Bai Yu wanted to fight 2 at once, but Tanjiro did not doubt Bai Yu's ability and felt that Bai Yu's decision was very correct. He must quickly find the ghost that controls these silk threads, so that all the control team members can be completely rescued. Compared with assisting Bai Yu in dealing with the lower strings, Tanjiro felt that he should go to save people. I know Inosuke, the smell of 2 lower strings is interfering with my nose. Do you have any way to find the ghost that controls the spider silk threads? We must do as Senior Bai Yu said, and split into 2 groups. Tanjiro immediately asked Inosuke for help. The strong smell of the 2 lower strings was nearby, which completely interfered with Tanjiro's sense of smell. Hearing this, Inosuke didn't expect Tanjiro to ask for help, so he felt a little proud and said proudly, "Looking for a ghost, right? Finding things in the mountains is my strong point. As long as it's not in a closed and narrow space, my spatial perception is very powerful." After saying that, Inosuke knelt on one knee, then spread his hands, and made a gesture to perceive the surroundings. Beast breathing, 7th form, spatial perception. Then, Inosuke's mind took himself as the center, and perceived all living creatures within a radius of 1 kilometer around him. Through the characteristics of the ghost, Inosuke soon sensed the existence of the 3rd ghost in addition to the 2 lower strings. There, Inosuke stood up immediately, and pointed in a direction to Tanjiro. "Shinichi-senpai, Shinji. Let's go over there quickly. Leave this to Shiraha-senpai." Tanjiro immediately stopped neglecting, and said to the brothers Shinichi and Shinji. Shinji still believed in Shiraha, so he nodded to Tanjiro. Shinichi felt that Tanjiro was as crazy as Shiraha. He actually planned to let Shiraha deal with 2 lower rank demons alone. Crazy, crazy, Shinichi muttered. The handsome boy is really confident in himself. He actually wants to deal with the 2 of us alone. You underestimate us too much, the naked lower rank 4 said, and directly attacked Shiraha. The arms of the lower rank 4 were like plasticine, and they rushed towards Shiraha all of a sudden, and immediately entangled Shiraha's entire body. "If you don't want to die, leave quickly. Do you still want to stay here and watch the show?" Shiraha saw that he was controlled, and immediately shouted at Shinichi. The momentum of this shout really stunned Shinichi. Immediately, Shinichi ran away first. Chapter 189, Breath of Wood, Form 1, Wood Invasion. Tanjiro, Inosuke and Shinji did not delay and ran away. Tanjiro saw Shinji running off the direction and immediately shouted to him, "Shinji Senior, this way." Shinji immediately chased in the direction of Tanjiro in a panic. Bai Yu, who was controlled, felt a huge force squeezing his body, and this force kept getting stronger and stronger. If it weren't for the mission reward, Bai Yu would have turned into a ghost and pulled the naked lower 4 back to beat him up. "Hehe, you can't use your weapons at all with your hands and feet controlled by me. You can't break free from my control with your flesh alone. You will be completely squeezed into a pulp by my power." The lower 4 laughed triumphantly. It didn't expect that Bai Yu would be controlled so easily by it. "I can handle this handsome boy by myself. You go chase the demon hunter with the Hanafuda on his ear. That master has personally put a bounty on his head." As if confident in his control, the 4th lower moon planned to let the 3rd lower moon chase Tanjiro and his group. Wood breathing, 1st form, Wood Invasion. Bai Yu also launched a move created based on the characteristics of wood breathing, Wood Invasion. Wood breathing, 1st form, Wood Invasion. This move is based on wood breathing and is the first offensive move created by Bai Yu himself. The user generates a large amount of wood essence through wood breathing. Through contact with the enemy, a large amount of wood essence will invade the enemy's body and completely destroy the enemy's cells. Bai Yu was also inspired by the fact that water can carry a boat, but can also overturn it. The same is true for the wood essence generated by wood breathing. The right amount of wood essence can repair cells, but an instantaneous excess of wood essence will have the opposite effect. How to produce more wood essence in a short time. This is what Bai Yu figured out through repeated deductions of breathing. Bai Yu was seen steaming with green mist all over his body, and then the arm of the lower string 4 that was wrapped around Bai Yu turned green at a very fast speed, and then the arm of the lower string 4 began to shrink, and finally completely necrotized. What's going on? What kind of magic did you use? The lower string 4 also felt the necrosis of his arm, and this necrosis was still irreversible. If the lower string 4 continued to keep in touch with Bai Yu, it was estimated that as time went by, all her cells would be destroyed by Bai Yu, which was equivalent to killing it. The lower string 4 did not expect that Bai Yu would use such a strange trick when his body was completely controlled. In its previous cognition, as long as the ghost hunter could not draw his sword, it would be equivalent to sentencing the ghost hunter to death. because the ghost hunter's physical strength alone could not fight against the ghost. Immediately, the lower string 4 panicked and took the initiative to tear off his arm, so that the main body broke the connection with Bai Yu. The lower 3, who was about to chase Tanjiro, saw the sudden change in the situation, and without saying a word, a shadow clone appeared in front of Bai Yu. Then the real body of the lower 3 exchanged positions with the human-shaped black mist, and then the scimitar in the hand of the lower 3 slashed towards Bai Yu's neck. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 191 Versus 2. Bai Yu reacted very quickly. Because the arm that was tightly wrapped around him had already died, Bai Yu easily broke free from the control. At the same time, he quickly changed his breathing pattern, and Bai Yu's right hand was placed on the handle of the Takala Sun wheel sword at his waist. Water breathing, 12 form, dark blade strangling. Bai Yu twitched the 2-color sun wheel sword at his waist like lightning, and then Bai Yu's body suddenly produced dense sword energy protection, blocking the fatal finishing blow of the lower third. Water breathing, 1 form, water surface slash. Immediately, Bai Yu pulled out the knife in an instant, and launched a counter-attack against the neck of the lower third. Only a flash of cold light and a splash of water were seen, and Bai Yu's knife had already been swung out. However, at this moment, the lower third once again successfully avoided Bai Yu's fatal blow by changing his position through the shadow clone. Bai Yu's sun wheel sword chopped on the black mist figure and immediately chopped the black mist figure into smoke. After a few simple contacts between the two sides, an extremely strong smell of gunpowder erupted. After a brief contact with Bai Yu, the 4th and 3rd lower strings also evaluated Bai Yu's strength. With such strange means and profound strength, no wonder you can kill the 6th lower string. The 3rd lower string no longer looked down on Bai Yu, but became serious. Bai Yu did not say anything. After finding out the abilities of the 4th and 3rd lower strings, Bai Yu took the initiative to attack the 3rd lower string. Because the neck of the 3rd lower string is relatively easier to cut, and the state of the 4th lower string's body can change at any time, the 4th lower string will be more difficult. Join hands to get rid of him. The 3rd lower string immediately said to the 4th lower string. After seeing Bai Yu's means and strength, the 4th lower string also understood that it was very easy to overturn like the 6th lower string in a one-on-one fight, so the 4th lower string chose to join forces with the 3rd lower string, which was a more prudent way of dealing with it. Just as Bai Yu was approaching the lower string 3, he suddenly staggered and almost fell to the ground. Immediately, Bai Yu looked down and found that one of his feet was firmly sucked to the ground by a ball of blood-red sticky colloid. Finally, Bai Yu looked at the lower string 4 again and saw that the lower body of the lower string 4 was already attached to the surrounding ground. The sticky colloid that was firmly sucking his ankle was part of the body of the lower string 4. Bai Yu knew that he could not get rid of the restraint of the lower string 4 by brute force, and immediately Bai Yu directly attacked the ground. Water breathing, 8th form, Taketsubo. Water breathing, 8th form, Taketsubo. This move is a vertical slash from top to bottom, which has a serious impact on the target below, or on the ground. The master can generate surging waves of water at the moment the blade is chopped down. Then Bai Yu raised his sword and slashed it down. The blade of the Takala Sun blade chopped down heavily at his feet. Suddenly, the surging water waves shook the gelatinous body of the lower string 4 attached to the ground and flew up. The entire gelatinous body of the lower string 4 attached to the ground was instantly broken into countless small pieces of gel under Bai Yu's attack, and Bai Yu's feet that were sucked were also freed. Although Bai Yu got rid of the control, the attack of the lower string 3 had already fallen on Bai Yu. Just when Bai Yu launched Taketsubo, the lower string 3 had already placed a shadow clone behind Bai Yu. Chapter 191 Preemptive Strike. Bai Yu had expected that the lower string 3 would take the opportunity to attack him, so after launching Taketsubo, he did a tactical roll in front of him, temporarily putting himself in a safer situation. The main body of the lower string 3 did not exchange positions with the shadow behind Bai Yu, but threw a shuriken at Bai Yu. At the same time, all the shadow clones of the lower string 3 also followed the main body and threw shadow shurikens in the direction of Bai Yu. Bai Yu immediately waved his sword to block the flying shurikens, and the posture and gesture were extremely gorgeous. Ding ding ding. Then several sounds of metal hitting each other sounded, and all 6 flying shurikens were blocked by Bai Yu. Just when Bai Yu wanted to use water breathing, the 3 forms, and the flow dance, to get close to him, the lower string 4 took the opportunity to entangle Bai Yu's feet, and Bai Yu had no chance to launch a counter-attack. From the situation, Bai Yu would not have any advantage when facing 2 lower strings at the same time, and he would not have the opportunity to fight back. However, Bai Yu still used his strength and operation to prove that he could deal with 2 lower strings at the same time. Water breathing, 13th form, domain judgment. Bai Yu, who was immobilized, had to activate water breathing, 13th form, and domain judgment to temporarily control the situation. Because Bai Yu did not choose many targets this time, except for the 2 lower strings and the 5 shadow clones, he did not choose other targets. Therefore, Bai Yu's release of this move was much faster than before. Bai Yu pulled out half of the blade, and then a huge whirlwind was generated in an instant. After a breath, Bai Yu pushed the knife back into the scabbard again. The moment the demon-slaying sword was pushed back by Bai Yu, a lot of water splashed under Bai Yu's feet, and then the lower string 4 and lower string 3 were attacked by the sword energy. Because Bai Yu's domain judgment is a directional skill, as long as the target does not leave the attack range, it cannot escape the judgment. The shadow clones of the lower string 3 were instantly dispersed by the sword energy of the domain judgment. Although the lower string 3 and lower string 4 were judged by Bai Yu's domain judgment, this powerful attack was not enough to kill them. The attack only caused a lot of bloody wounds on the lower string 3, and these bloody wounds were only caused by the sword energy, not the blade of the demon-slaying sword, so the suppression effect was naturally not achieved. Because the body of the lower string 4 was in a colloidal state, it was directly cut into pieces and fell to the ground after being judged by Bai Yu's domain. The decomposed body of the lower string 4 began to wriggle consciously and then gathered together again. The lower string 3 healed the wounds on his body with some regret. Although these wounds did not cause fatal damage to him, he would soon be able to recover as before through his powerful healing power as a ghost. But the reason why the lower string 3 was upset was that Bai Yu actually attacked him first. Bai Yu took advantage of this gap to get rid of the control of the lower string 4, and then thought about how to get rid of the annoying restraint of the lower string 4. Soon, Bai Yu looked around and looked at the dense trees around him. Bai Yu immediately jumped onto a tree. Bai Yu felt that he should be able to get rid of the control of the lower 4 on the tree, unless the body of the lower 4 could still climb up along the tree trunk. Chapter 192 Dance of Death. Even if the body of the lower string 4 could crawl up along the tree trunk, it would certainly not be as easy as on the ground, which would give Bai Yu more time to react. After Bai Yu jumped onto the tree, the decomposed body of the lower string 4 also condensed together again. After the lower string 4 saw Bai Yu climbing the tree, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. It seems that Bai Yu is not only extremely powerful, but also very smart. He actually thought of climbing the tree to get rid of his restraint. Although this is a good method, it is also difficult for Bai Yu to launch a fierce attack on them on the tree. Bai Yu, who was standing on the tree, naturally thought of this problem. How should he launch a counter-attack after climbing the tree? The lower string 3, which uses the assassination attack mode, quickly changed its position with a shadow clone and came to Bai Yu and started a fierce fight with Bai Yu. Bai Yu saw that the lower string 3 took the initiative to find him to fight, and Bai Yu was not weak and immediately launched a counter-attack against him. When the lower string 3 saw Bai Yu, he threw the shuriken in his hand heavily at Bai Yu, and then quickly went behind Bai Yu through the shadow clone, and then threw out 2 more shuriken. Bai Yu knew that the blood demon art of the lower string 3 relied on the position change of these shadow clones to contain the enemy, and then took advantage of the flaws revealed when the enemy was defending, and finally delivered a fatal blow. However, how could Bai Yu leak the flaws to the lower string 3? Water breathing, 12 forms, dark blade strangling. Bai Yu instantly drew the 2-color sun wheel sword on his waist and first used the defensive counter-attack move of dark blade strangling to parry all the shuriken shot at him by the lower string 3. Then, Bai Yu fiercely slashed at the shadow clones of the lower string 3 that remained around him with a few swords. As Bai Yu turned around and chopped off the last shadow clone, the tentacles that burst out from the body of the lower string 4 sucked one of Bai Yu's feet firmly into it. Bai Yu felt the feeling on his feet and knew that the entanglement of the lower string 4 had come again, so he immediately wanted to draw his sword and launch the dark blade strangle again. As a result, as soon as Bai Yu's hand was placed on the hilt, the body of the lower string 4 burst out another tentacle, which stuck Bai Yu's hand, the hilt and the scabbard together. Bai Yu couldn't pull the blade at all. If he couldn't pull the blade, he couldn't release the moves with his breathing. Bai Yu immediately changed his breathing mode, from water breathing to wood breathing. Wood breathing, one form, wood invasion. It was the last time that the wood invasion controlled by the lower string 4 was resolved. This time, Bai Yu concentrated all the wood energy on the sealed arm. Bai Yu's right arm was steaming with green mist, and in Bai Yu's palm was shining with a faint green light. Facing Bai Yu's wood invasion, the lower string 4 had no way to deal with it. It was also the first time that the lower string 4 was completely restrained. If it were any other ghost hunter, they would definitely not be able to break free of its control. At the same time, the lower string 3 knew that Bai Yu could break the control of the lower string 4, so the first time Bai Yu was controlled by the lower string 4, the lower string 3 immediately placed all 5 shadow clones around Bai Yu and surrounded Bai Yu. The distance between Bai Yu and the 5 shadow clones was less than a fist, and the 5 shadow clones were almost sticking to Bai Yu's body. Blood Demon Art Dance of Death. Chapter 193 Bai Yu's counterattack. Water breathing, 12 forms, dark blade strangling. When the lower string 3 launched its blood demon art, death dance, Bai Yu also broke free from the control of the lower string 4 and used water breathing, 12 forms, and dark blade strangling. The blood demon art of the lower string 3, death dance, is a move that relies on the body to rotate and shoot a large number of shurikens in all directions. At the same time, the shadow clones will follow the main body and perform the same moves. So the 5 shadow clones surrounded Bai Yu at such a close distance. From this point, it can be seen that the lower string 3 is determined to kill Bai Yu. At this time, Bai Yu had no time to open a safe distance with the shadow clones that were close to him, because Bai Yu's feet were still entangled at this time and did not get rid of the control of the lower string 4. Bai Yu just used the wood invasion to free his right hands. At that time, there was no time for Bai Yu to free his controlled feet. If that happens, Bai Yu will lose the opportunity to perform the dark blade strangulation. In this case, he will face a situation where he will have to use his body to block the death dance of the lower string 3 without any defense. As a result, Bai Yu will definitely die in the death dance of the lower string 3. As the death dance of the lower string 3 was launched, the 5 shadow clones immediately shot out extremely terrifying shurikens. Although most of the shurikens were abounded by the sword energy generated by the dark blade strangulation released by Bai Yu, the dark blade strangulation lasted only 2 seconds. Those shurikens that were abounded splashed randomly around, so many leaves were cut down by it, like rain. The attack time of the death dance is obviously more than 2 seconds. Bai Yu used the 2 seconds of invincibility gained by the dark blade strangulation to use the water breathing, 13 form, and domain judgment on the 5 shadow clones in the lower string 3. Water breathing, type 13, domain judgment. It took Bai Yu only 1 second to launch the domain judgment this time, and there was no charge, so the power was not very strong. However, the domain judgment once again helped Bai Yu block most of the shurikens shot out by the death dance, but Bai Yu was still scratched by a few shurikens. Although the domain judgment attacked the body of the lower string 3, the blood demon art of the lower string 3, the death dance, was still not interrupted. It was just that many of the shurikens that were abounded by the sword energy injured it. After the judgment was launched, Bai Yu immediately killed out of the concentrated fire range of the death dance, and then kicked his legs, and stepped on the leaves falling all over the sky. Bai Yu's whole body was like a dragonfly skimming the water. The moment his toe stepped on the leaves, a ripple of water was immediately produced, and Bai Yu seemed to be on the water. Water breathing, 9 forms, water flow and spray. In fact, this move of moving forward with the help of leaves is a physical skill that Tanjiro used to reverse the situation when dealing with Hibiki. However, Tanjiro stepped on paper at that time, while Bai Yu stepped on leaves this time. Compared with Tanjiro, Bai Yu's proficiency in this move is higher than Tanjiro, because while rushing towards the lower string 3, Bai Yu was still slashing the shuriken that was shooting at him with the two-color sun wheel sword in his hand. Although he had realized that Bai Yu had escaped from the focus of the shadow clones, the lower string 3 had no intention of stopping the dance of death at this time. And because Bai Yu was advancing on the falling leaves, the lower string 4 could not use the previous method to contain Bai Yu's pace. In the end, even if the lower string 4 turned its body into dense tentacles and tried to forcibly control Bai Yu, it was still avoided by Bai Yu's clever physical skills. Chapter 194, Killing the Lower Moon 3. The lower string 4 knew that Bai Yu's target was the lower string 3, so his entire body completely turned into a colloidal state, and then he quickly moved towards the position of the lower string 3. Bai Yu, who dodged all the attacks of the lower string 3 and the lower string 4, had successfully approached the lower string 3, and at the same time, the knife in his hand had been raised high above his head, and then he stabbed at the head of the lower string 3 fiercely. At the same time that Bai used her color sun wheel sword stabbed forward, the main body of the lower string 3 exchanged positions with the shadow clone. Bai Yu's knife stabbed into the air, and the final blow only knocked down one of the shadow clones of the lower string 3. Bai Yu had long anticipated that the lower string 3 might avoid the attack by changing the position of the shadow clone, so Bai Yu did not have any emotional fluctuations. Instead, at the moment of landing, when his body was sliding due to inertia, he had changed his attack posture. Bai Yu was seen leaning forward with his feet in a bow stance to maintain balance while sliding. At the same time, the two-color sun blade in Bai Yu's hand was put back into the scabbard when the attack posture changed. At this time, Bai Yu once again made a gesture to draw the sword. The next moment, Bai Yu's hand holding the hilt suddenly twitched back and forth 5 times. Swish 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 swish, 5 consecutive sounds of the blade being unsheathed rang out, and the sounds were connected together, and it felt like there was only one sound. Water breathing, 11th form, water shadow / 5 consecutive. Water breathing, 11th form, water shadow / 5 consecutive. This move is a derivative move of water shadow /, which turns the original single core attack into a multi-core attack. Bai Yu had already figured out the number of shadow clones of lower string 3, so in order to prevent it from switching positions through its shadow clones again, Bai Yu directly launched water shadow / 5 combos to deal a fatal blow to lower string 3 and its shadow clones. Therefore, this is Bai Yu's real killer move. Water shadow / can kill people invisibly. Even if lower string 3 senses something is wrong and switches positions, it will eventually be unable to dodge Bai Yu's calculated attack. 5 cold lights flashed, and the head of lower string 3 was cut off by Bai Yu, and then rolled to the ground. Damn. How did you do such an attack? Lower string 3 did not expect that after Bai Yu distanced himself from Bai Yu through his shadow clones, Bai Yu could still attack him from a distance. As Bai Yu's attack was launched, lower string 4's attack on Bai Yu also fell. Because Bai Yu was only concerned with killing lower string 3 first, he completely ignored lower string 4, which gave lower string 4 an opportunity to take advantage of it. Blood Demon Art, Endless Devouring. Under Bai Yu's feet, the lower string 4, which had completely turned into a colloid state, instantly activated its Blood Demon Art. The entire body of the lower string 4 in a colloid state turned into a bloody mouth and instantly swallowed Bai Yu. The moment before Bai Yu was swallowed, Bai Yu took a deep breath, and this breath became the key to Bai Yu's breakthrough. Bai Yu, who was swallowed into the body of the lower string 4, suddenly felt that he could not breathe in the body of the lower string 4, and Bai Yu could feel that his body was being damaged by the lower string 4, and the lower string 4 intended to completely decompose and absorb himself. Bai Yu tried to move his body, but found that the extremely sticky space of the lower string 4 restricted him tightly. Outside, the body of the lower string 4, which wrapped Bai Yu, once again showed the prototype of a human figure, and the posture of this human figure was the posture of Bai Yu when he was swallowed. Chapter 195, Resolving the Deadlock. Bai Yu knew that he couldn't drag it on any longer, or he would really die in the hands of this lower string 4. Now he couldn't breathe, and his body couldn't make any movements, so it was impossible to use his last breath to launch the water breathing move. Even if he used the wood invasion of the wood breathing method, the essence produced by only one breath could not completely destroy all the cells of the lower string 4. Therefore, Bai Yu couldn't fight the war of attrition. Should he activate the devilization? Bai Yu also had this idea at this time, but Bai Yu didn't want to give up the task reward so easily. After all, it took a lot of effort to kill the lower string 3. If he activated the devilization now, it would be equivalent to all his efforts just now being in vain. It would be better to activate the devilization directly from the beginning. Just when Bai Yu was struggling, Bai Yu was quick-witted and recalled his deduction of the wood invasion. Because he didn't control it well, a large amount of wood essence exploded directly, and this explosion directly injured Bai Yu's skin. However, Bai Yu later used the wood breathing to restore the injured skin, which avoided leaving scars. With only one breath left, Bai Yu would have to sacrifice himself to save himself, but the choice of the explosion point must be extremely critical. Although Bai Yu was very reluctant to choose the explosion point on his face, only by choosing the explosion point on his face could Bai Yu regain the opportunity to breathe. As long as Bai Yu could breathe again, he could turn the deadlock around. If the pillar of the Demon Slayer core was swallowed by the lower string 4, it would probably be a certain death, because in the body of the lower string 4, not only could he not breathe, but even his body could not move. Not being able to breathe is equivalent to sentencing the demon hunter to death. Even if it is a pillar, if he cannot breathe, he still has no chance of winning by relying on his own attributes to fight the most ordinary ghost. Even before being swallowed, the pillar had a breath left like Bai Yu. But in the body of the lower string 4, he could not move at all, so he could not launch an attack to escape from danger. Unless the pillar has a move that does not rely on weapons as a medium, the only ending is death. The reason why Bai Yu still had a chance to break the deadlock was that he relied on the breathing of wood, which was not one of the 5 major schools. Because the breathing of wood does not need any medium to play its role, even if Bai Yu cannot move his whole body, as long as he has a breath, he can use the breathing of wood. Immediately, Bai Yu used his last breath to condense a lot of wood essence near his nose. The wood essence produced by Bai Yu's special breathing pattern was extremely violent, especially in such a closed environment. The concentration of essence instantly reached the critical point, and then an explosion occurred. Boom. Only a dull explosion was heard, and the body of the lower string 4 holding Bai Yu's head was blown everywhere. Bai Yu's nose was directly blown and bleeding, and the nosebleed flowed down. Bai Yu immediately seized the opportunity and breathed greedily. During the breath, Bai Yu used the invasion of wood. The lower moon 4 didn't expect Bai Yu to still be able to resist. While being surprised, the lower moon 4 wanted to wrap Bai Yu up again. However, Bai Yu would never give the lower moon 4 this opportunity. Chapter 196 Derivative Moves. Wood Breathing. Form 1. Wood Invasion was launched, and Bai Yu pushed the power of Wood Invasion to the highest point with the fastest speed and rhythm. Suddenly, Bai Yu was like a plague god, with a lot of green gas coming out of his body, and it was impossible for the lower string 4 to wrap Bai Yu's head again. A large amount of wood essence was madly pouring into the body of the lower string 4, and it was destroying its cells. It can be said that the tighter the lower string 4 wrapped Bai Yu, the faster the body would necrotize. Involuntarily, the lower string 4 wanted to separate from Bai Yu instinctively. The reversal of the situation made the lower string 4 suddenly terrified. In this state, Bai Yu had no way to deal with it. The strongest killing moves were ineffective against Bai Yu. If it fought like the lower string 3, it would obviously be even more unable to defeat Bai Yu. The reason born under fear made the lower string 4 think of escaping. I saw that the lower string 4 gave up those necrotic bodies, and the whole body retreated from Bai Yu like a tide. After Bai Yu saw the actions of the lower string 4, he realized that the lower string 4 wanted to escape, so Bai Yu attacked the lower string 4 before the lower string 4 was completely separated from him, and his hands were freed. Wood Breathing. 1 Form. Wood Invasion Stab. Bai Yu immediately pulled out the demon slaying sword at his waist, and then concentrated all the wood essence of the wood invasion on the tip of the sword, and finally stabbed the body of the lower string 4 heavily. In an instant, the body of the lower string 4 was disintegrated by the wood essence, and all of it was necrotic and brittle. One-shot kill. This was also what Bai Yu had not expected. The lower string 4 did not even have the opportunity to abandon the necrotic body, and all the cells in the body were destroyed by the wood essence. Bai Yu suddenly came up with the idea of releasing the wood invasion with the help of the Demon Slayer sword. He did not expect that the power released from the tip of the sword would be even greater than that released from the whole body, and instantly disintegrated the lower string 4. Bai Yu also successfully unlocked a killer move. After completing this mission, the realm of the wood breathing technique will be raised to the realm of the ultimate mystery. Using this realm of breathing technique to launch the wood invasion stab, the damage index will definitely be raised by several levels. It is estimated that the improvement of the breathing technique realm may be the system's preparation for dealing with the upper string demon. Just like the wood breathing played a miraculous role in the Taki battles. Looking at the dissipating dried body of the lower string 4, Bai Yu did not know whether he could still collect blood. With a try mentality, Bai Yu pierced Yoshiro's blood collection tool into the dried torso. Then the blood collection tool began to draw blood from the body, and finally drew out some black blood. Looking at the black blood, Bai Yu knew that the wood essence had destroyed the blood cells of the lower string 4, and he didn't know whether such necrotic blood would be helpful to Tamayo's research. Finally, Bai Yu immediately noticed that there was still a small piece of the body of the lower string 3 that had not completely dissipated. Bai Yu quickly inserted the blood collection tool. The way the lower string 3 died was different from that of the lower string 4, so the body piece was very fresh. As soon as the blood collection tool was inserted, the bright red blood was immediately drawn out and then filled the blood collection tool. Bai Yu immediately took back the 2 blood collection tools that had collected blood, and then a cat's cry reached Bai Yu's ears. Yoshiro's courier cat found Bai Yu again at the first time. Like last time, Bai Yu put the 2 blood collection tools that had collected blood into the small backpack on the back of the courier cat. The courier cat that got the blood did not stay for too long, and disappeared with the blood through Yoshiro's blood demon technique. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, The Power of Love. Long after Bai Yu, Tanjiro and Inosuke entered the mountain, the weak heartbeat and breathing of the seriously injured demon slayer suddenly stopped in Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears. Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears are very sensitive, and he can hear the heartbeat of the other party even without a stethoscope or putting it on the other party's chest. But the weak heartbeat and breathing that have always existed disappeared at this time, which made Zenitsu Agatsuma suddenly look at the team member lying on the ground, dead. Zenitsu Agatsuma suddenly asked himself in his heart. Immediately, Zenitsu Agatsuma carefully crawled in front of the dead team member, and then used his hand to carefully feel the team member's breathing. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After a long time, Zenitsu Agatsuma still did not feel the team member's breathing. Suddenly, Zenitsu Agatsuma was frightened and pulled back his hand, and then he was shocked and stammered, "Really dead, dead." After saying that, Zenitsu Agatsuma suddenly distanced himself from the dead team member, and his nerves suddenly tensed up. At this time, the little sparrow that followed Agatsuma Zenitsu flew in front of Agatsuma Zenitsu, and then chirped and cried, looking very anxious. Agatsuma Zenitsu didn't know what the little sparrow meant, so he said to the little sparrow, "I really envy you. You can be carefree. You don't have to experience the bitterness of being a human being." Seeing that Agatsuma Zenitsu didn't understand what he meant, the little sparrow immediately pecked at Agatsuma Zenitsu's face anxiously. "What are you doing? You always peck people for no reason. You know it hurts. You are not cute at all like this. Nezuko is so cute as a ghost. You are too fierce as a sparrow." Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately pointed at the little sparrow and scolded him angrily. While cursing, Agatsuma Zenitsu seemed to remember something, and his expression suddenly changed and he shouted, "Ah, Tanjiro brought Nezuko into the mountain. He actually took my beloved Nezuko away. Tanjiro is so scary. He actually took a girl to such a dangerous place. Idiot, idiot, idiot." Idiot Agatsuma Zenitsu, who had completely reacted, suddenly ran towards Spider Mountain. The speed was like lightning. Nezuko, I'm coming. Don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you. Agatsuma Zenitsu ran into the mountain like this until he was tired and out of breath. Agatsuma Zenitsu calmed down a lot, and the chicken blood just now was completely used up. Nezu. Bean. Where are you? Shiraha-senpai, Tanjiro, Inosuke, where are you? You won't be killed by the demon, right? Even Chitaro is not with me. Going deep into Spider Mountain to find Nezuko, Zenitsu Agatsuma, who was somewhat exhausted, knelt on the ground. Compared with the foot of the mountain, the screams heard by Zenitsu Agatsuma in the mountain were clearer and more creepy. Zenitsu Agatsuma, who was afraid of facing everything alone, could not help but completely collapse his psychological defenses, and he immediately started crying. Zenitsu Agatsuma was crying while wiping his tears. At this moment, the little sparrow landed on Zenitsu Agatsuma's head and chirped. Zenitsu Agatsuma immediately grabbed the little sparrow and rubbed his face against the little sparrow named Chitaro. That's great. Chitaro. You didn't abandon me. You're so cute like this, although not as cute as Nezuko Agatsuma Zenitsu said while rubbing. Chapter 198 Human-Headed Spider. At this moment, a creaking sound suddenly came from behind Agatsuma Zenitsu, which was creepy in this extremely gloomy mountain. Agatsuma Zenitsu shuddered all over, and then the whole person froze, as if he was fixed. Agatsuma Zenitsu, who tried his best to restrain his fear, turned his head mechanically. When he turned around and saw a scene, it directly impacted Agatsuma Zenitsu's soul, because a human-headed spider with a human head was crawling towards Agatsuma Zenitsu. The creaking sound just now was the sound made by the human-headed spider when it crawled. Ah, what the hell is this? Agatsuma Zenitsu screamed at the top of his voice, and then the whole person turned around and ran like a chicken blood again. Looking at Agatsuma Zenitsu's speed, you can know that when people encounter danger, the potential that bursts out is unimaginable. Agatsuma Zenitsu ran out more than 10 meters in an instant like a yellow lightning. It's actually a human-headed spider. What's going on? Am I dreaming? I must be dreaming. Wake up. Wake up. Agatsuma Zenitsu shouted loudly while running, as if he wanted to drive away the immense fear in his heart by shouting. While Agatsuma Zenitsu was running around without any direction, he ran to an open space where the trees were not very dense. Immediately, Agatsuma Zenitsu stopped abruptly, and then the pupils of his eyes suddenly shrank, looking at the scene in front of him in surprise. At this time, Agatsuma Zenitsu saw a lot of people and a wooden house floating in the air. Most of these people were members of the Demon Slayer Corps wearing uniforms, and some were civilians. Among these people, some have already undergone alienation, their limbs have begun to shrink, and spider legs have grown on their bodies. That look is extremely terrifying, just like looking at a monster. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Humans have been turned into spiders? Is that house floating in the air? It seems that I can vaguely see something from the air. Is it a silk thread? Agatsuma Zenitsu kept asking himself in his heart. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew up, and an extremely unpleasant stench nearby invaded Agatsuma Zenitsu's nose. Agatsuma Zenitsu immediately covered his nose, and complained with an unpleasant expression, "What a pungent stench. Tanjiro, who has a very sensitive nose, will definitely be killed by this smell. This smell makes my throat hurt. I can't open my eyes, because of the smoke." Through Agatsuma Zenitsu's description, you can imagine how disgusting and irritating the smell coming from this wooden house is. It's simply a biological weapon. Then, the wooden house suddenly made a creaking sound, and then a human-headed spider, that was much larger than the human-headed spider that Agatsuma Zenitsu had just encountered, hung upside down on the spider silk and hung down. So big. So big. So big. Agatsuma Zenitsu saw this huge human-headed spider and immediately exclaimed 3 times. This giant human-headed spider is a demon that can turn ordinary people into human-headed spiders. It is different from Muzan Kibutsuji, who turns ordinary people into demons. This demon turns people into human-headed spiders like it. The mutated people do not gain any enhanced abilities, but only become spiders with a human head. Apart from being able to scare people, it is not even as good as an ordinary demon. It is completely different from Muzan Kibutsuji, who turns people into demons. Because Muzan Kibutsuji turns people into demons, from a certain perspective, it actually allows ordinary people to evolve to a higher level, but this evolution has a big flaw. Chapter 199, Tanjiro and his group encounter. After separating from Bai Yu, Tanjiro and his group quickly moved in the direction indicated by Nezuko. Hey, is it really feasible to leave that guy there alone? Shinichi couldn't help but ask Tanjiro. From his question, it can be seen that he is still worried about Bai Yu. Hearing this, Tanjiro replied, if Bai Yu Sr. is not able to do it, what's the point of us staying there? Are you planning to die with Bai Yu Sr.? Tanjiro said this specifically for Shinichi, and in his heart, Tanjiro believed that Bai Yu could handle the situation at that time. Even if Bai Yu actually knew that he could not deal with the two lower strings, he told a white lie to save his group and let himself and his group escape safely from the dangerous situation at that time. Tanjiro also understood that Bai Yu was right to do this, and even if the roles of the two were reversed, Tanjiro would make such a decision. Of course, what Tanjiro hoped for was that Bai Yu could kill the two lower strings. As Tanjiro and his group approached, the spider silk in the woods became denser and denser, and the speed of Tanjiro and his group was limited. Because as long as they were not careful, they would be entangled by the spider silk. So Tanjiro and his group used the Nichiren sword to cut these annoying spider silk while moving forward. These silk threads have become denser, which means we should be close to the ghost that controls the silk threads. Everyone should be more careful. Tanjiro kindly reminded everyone. Suddenly, the road in front of Tanjiro was blocked by a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, and that member was a female member with a ponytail. At this time, she was still holding the other members she had killed in her hands, and she also had a lot of knife wounds on her body, which looked a bit scary. These controlled guys again. Inosuke complained immediately. Don't come over, I will hurt you. Bring higher level members over quickly. Otherwise, all of us will be killed. The controlled female member cried to Tanjiro and his group in great pain. After saying that, the female team member attacked Tanjiro. Tanjiro was immediately forced to defend himself. Seeing the female team member's body forcibly making an impossible attack posture, and listening to the female team member's screams of pain, Tanjiro suddenly became annoyed. Damn it. They actually use thin wires to control people like this. Even if the bones are broken, it doesn't matter. Unforgivable. Just as Tanjiro was confronting the controlled female team member, the other team members who were still lying on the ground were immediately controlled by the ghost with spider silk. The other controlled people attacked Inosuke, Shinichi and Shinji. Please give me a quick death. I don't want to suffer anymore. Kill me. Hurry up. The team members whose limbs had already been strangely twisted and who might die at any time immediately pleaded with Tanjiro and his group. Since you are begging me sincerely, I will send you to death. Seeing these half-dead team members who were determined to die, Inosuke suddenly became a little excited. He had already pulled out the two Nichiren swords from his waist with both hands, ready to send those team members who were begging to die to death. Wait. Inosuke, you can't hurt them. Tanjiro immediately stopped Inosuke. If he didn't stop Inosuke, Tanjiro believed that Inosuke would definitely do something like killing his teammates with his own hands. Chapter 200, Shinji's decision. Inosuke, wait. You must have a way to save them. Tanjiro's personality is like this. Even when others are desperate to die, he still wants to save others. So annoying. Tanjiro, you are so annoying. Inosuke stopped his attack on the controlled team members. Tanjiro knew that Inosuke was a little upset about his decision, so he counseled Inosuke, but they are our partners. We can't take the initiative to hurt them. Inosuke dodged the attacks of the controlled team members and retorted, they themselves asked us to kill them. What are you still struggling with? When Tanjiro and Inosuke were avoiding each other's attacks, they suddenly collided back to back. Inosuke continued to stand from his own perspective, and said to Tanjiro, their movements are very fast and very unreasonable. If they continue to dawdle, we will be the ones to be killed. Tanjiro, this is left to me and my brother. You quickly find the ghost who controls the silk thread and kill it. Only in this way can we completely break the deadlock and save the controlled team members. While Shinji was confronting a controlled team member, He turned his head and suggested to Tanjiro. As an older brother, Shinichi heard this and immediately felt that his younger brother was crazy. At this time, he actually learned to be a hero like Bai Yu. Shinji, are you out of your mind? What nonsense are you talking about? Shinichi immediately scolded his brother. Shinichi naturally disagreed with his brother's decision because he didn't believe that Tanjiro could kill the ghost that controlled the thread. If Tanjiro couldn't kill the ghost, it would mean that Shinji's decision would completely push the two of them into an extremely dangerous situation. Tanjiro heard this and didn't expect Shinji to trust him so much, so he nodded and said to Inosuke, let's go. Leave this to them. Okay. Inosuke didn't want to waste time with these team members who couldn't hurt them, so he immediately broke through a path and continued to rush towards the direction of the ghost that controlled the thread. Tanjiro immediately followed him. Before leaving, Tanjiro promised Shinji, I will definitely rescue you from danger. Hey, you really have to go. Shinichi saw that Tanjiro and Inosuke actually ran away and suddenly became a little anxious. However, Tanjiro and Inosuke ignored Shinji. Helpless, Shinji had to grab Shinji and yelled, what kind of hero are you trying to be? Do you know that it is very stupid to disperse the fighting force at will? Brother, Tanjiro is the junior of Bai Yu Senior. He will definitely be able to kill the ghost that controls the silk thread. Because this is the decision made by Bai Yu Senior at the beginning, you have to believe in Bai Yu Senior and Tanjiro. Shinji immediately comforted his brother. The most important reason why Shinji made this decision was that he believed in Bai Yu's explanation to Tanjiro at that time. Since Bai Yu believed in Tanjiro, Shinji also believed in Tanjiro. A team member who is also a D-level player like you, no matter how powerful he is, can he be more powerful than me? Shinichi said a little unconvinced. Shinichi felt that, even if he had to keep someone to contain him, he should not keep him, because he felt that it would be better for him to let Tanjiro kill the ghost that controls the silk thread than to let Tanjiro go. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.